You never know, right? And it has this little scroll like, yes, it says we're live. Hey everyone, my name is Susanna Harris, and this is Grad Chat, where each week we talk about a different topic really important to grad students and academics, maybe some things that we don't normally talk about. And I am super excited to be here.
Hi everyone, my name is Fay Lin, and for today's Grad Chat, we're going to be talking about difficult conversations, and we're really excited to have Rob here as our special guest. So Rob, if you want to take some time to just introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Rob Ulrich. I use they, he pronouns. I'm finishing up the third year of my PhD in biogeochemistry at UCLA. Yeah, I don't know. I guess, yeah, I have sort of a similar experience as like Susanna and sort of building communities. So I co-founded Queer and Trans in STEM here at UCLA. I'm also a leadership facilitator and an early career fellow for the Center for Diverse Leadership in Science. And then I'm also the co-director for Reclaiming STEM, which is a science policy and science communication workshop by for marginalized students in STEM, centering social justice and how to use those different skills to push for justice. So,
Wow,
yeah.
So like pretty easy, you just like sleep a lot.
I try to.
You do amazing work, and you're always so active on social media, and you also do a great job of kind of educating people on social media, and even things that you've brought up. I feel like I'm constantly learning from you, even in little tidbits of last week. There was something about a lot of people were using the term tone deaf, and you brought up that that's actually very ableist language. And, it's that sort of, I think it's that type of people that we all need to surround ourselves with, is people who are willing to come out and say, hey, this is not actually what we want to be saying. This is not promoting the kind of culture that we're trying to get to. So really excited to have you to talk about these kind of difficult conversations. And of course, we asked our people to, all of our different followers, to send in their questions. It's difficult conversations, so we got difficult questions. But let's jump right in. If you're watching live, remember you can always drop questions there in the chat. I see some people chatting, which is always fun. But let's start here. So Alex Wigand asked, how do you approach talking about your mental health difficulties with your advisor? We're starting hard.
I guess it really depends on, the relationship you have with your advisor to begin with. Sorry, there's a bug in front of me. Yeah, like whether or not, I think how you approach it really depends on like whether or not they have been like visibly or vocally like supportive of like talking about your mental health, like bringing it up to them. Because it can like be like very different conversations from you just like approaching them and being like, oh, like I haven't been able to work because like XYZ has been really affecting me recently, to them to also like the worst case scenario where they're just like they don't care at all, and they kind of are just like, it's not my problem, like deal with it. But I think in either case, you can always try to go in sort of like prepared, like knowing the resources and like rules, I guess, of like, oh, like this is how you're supposed to be supporting me. I'm like making this as easy as possible for you. Because I think one of the hard lessons we all learn when we go into grad school with an advisor is that like no matter how nice your advisor is and like how great of a mentor they are, the odds are that they know like the resources around campus or like the things that they're supposed to do, like even just like deadlines for like milestones in your program, they probably don't know them. So it's always good to like bring it up to them.
Yeah. Have you ever had these discussions with your advisor? A lot of people ask me how I have done it, and it's sort of funny because I talk very openly about my mental health issues, but I never really had a fully open discussion with my advisor. It came up after I started all this advocacy work, and it was sort of an acknowledgement discussion of, I know that things had gone on XYZ, let me know. And actually that was way better than I think most people have it. But have you gotten a chance to do that?
Oh yeah, I am extremely lucky in who my advisor is. One in that she also does a bunch of like social justice work, and then also like is very open about her mental health, and I'm just like, right on, like so it was very, she's like that at PI who's like, she'll notice you have like a weird like look one day, like when you walk past her in the hallway, and she'll like stop whoever she's talking to at the moment and be like, one sec, I need to go like check on them. I'm like, so yeah, I have, especially when my like my like master's exam was coming up. I remember we had a lab meeting like earlier in the day before it, and she was like, "How are you feeling about it?" And I mean, my chaos is internal, right? Like, I exude like a very like calm presence, but she was like, "I knew you were like panicking on the inside." um, but yeah, I was very lucky to have or I still do have a very supportive advisor.
Yeah, Faye, have you ever dealt with any of this?
Yeah, I mean, I think I have a parallel story with you, Susanna, where I think I started becoming more vocal on social media. And then once I saw this amazing support about mental health discussions, I think that was really empowering. And that also initiated discussions I had with faculty about mental health. And I think having a platform where you already see that there's a lot of support for this conversation ends up giving your voice a bit more power when you talk to faculty is what I've seen from my interactions. I think before, Rob, I'm really excited to have you here today. So for those of you who don't know, we're both at UCLA, and I'm so excited because I met Rob through Twitter and we're real life friends. I hope you feel the same, Rob. But
I do.
Okay, I needed the validation. So anyway, Rob, really excited to have you here. I really liked a lot of what you said about knowing your advisor or whoever it is that you are going to talk to, what their views are on this topic beforehand, and being informed about who your audience is, because mental health is still very stigmatized in many ways. And especially in academia, there's still people who think that if you are struggling with depression, that means you're weak or like you are not meant for science. And that's still a very real thing, that if you are going to talk to someone in academia, it's good to know what, where they stand on that. And I think some, maybe it's like a formula or tips that I think about is knowing who you're talking to. So that could be, like Rob said, getting to know what their stance on mental health is beforehand, maybe talking to other people. If other people have had conversations, mental health conversations with them, getting information. And then also this other thing I think about is like speaking their language. So for example, sometimes people don't really understand, oh, I'm struggling and I'm tired. I'm struggling with my mental health right now. Sometimes people don't really accept that as well as if you're saying, I'm struggling with depression, which is a medically documented disease. Like sometimes when you're talking to scientists, what I found is that you say it in that way and people tend to maybe honestly take it more seriously, which is ridiculous that I have to play around with my words for people to take this seriously. But I do think as we are still navigating stigma, it's important to know how to approach these conversations in a way that will still promote your wellness and just, navigate a broken system while we're still in it. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah.
Love it. Yeah, connecting dots for people who, if I don't know. I think one of the most important things about having difficult conversations is that everyone is going to be entering into the conversation at different points. So you might know a lot more about your mental health. Like obviously you know more about your mental health than like other people do, but like mental health in general versus like your PI who maybe has never even thought about it. So like drawing those points, being like being very clear, holding their hand through it. Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah. And I think also, even if it's the right person to talk to, I think we have to also respect that other people might not be in a space currently to talk about it, right? Like, I think it's really important that we get into the habit of saying, hey, I'd like to talk to you about something that's a little sensitive. I want to talk to you about my current, mental health status. Are you in a place right now that we can talk? Because, you might have an advisor who does want to be there for you, and it just might not be the right time. So yeah, I like that both of you are talking about kind of guiding that conversation. So, all right, Faye, you want to pick a question?
Yeah, let me pull up the questions we got.
I love getting the questions. And also I love that we don't have to answer them. Don't have to.
All right. Okay, so this one says, how should I ask busy supervisors for more of their time without being too pushy? Which I think is when we're talking about grad school and navigating how to approach our research and how to have a constructive research relationship with, if it's our advisor or lab mates, how to approach those conversations is valuable to talk about.
Yeah,
Who wants to
I guess I guess it similar sort of themes where it's like knowing where your advisor is coming from, or like knowing how they view mentoring, or like their style of mentoring. Maybe like at the beginning of that sort of conversation or discussion, just like asking, being like, hey, like I'd really like more time and like guidance on this thing, at least right now, because it would really help me be more productive in my work. Because they might not even realize that they're like aren't giving you enough time, or the time that you need or want. Because yeah, we're all like scrambling around, and like maybe they're just like, oh, like they're fine, they haven't said anything, they're doing just fine. If they are maybe more difficult, and maybe they're like, oh, I like can't give you more time, like I'm so busy, like you could reframe it and sort of like a pitch, be like, you investing time in me is an investment in you. Because then if I am able to do more work more productively, more effectively, more efficiently, that's going to make you look better, and also put me in a better position to probably take some stuff off of your plate. Yeah.
I like that. I think there was something I read a while back in like a self-help book or something, and I love self-help books. They're so, I don't know, I feel productive reading them. Anyway, it talked about the importance of the word because, and it's specifically because, but it's also saying, like, giving a reason. So that idea of I need help because this. Like the example that was used was someone asking to cut in line to use a copy machine in a library. And they found they were significantly more likely to get a chance to cut in line and take someone's spot if they said, excuse me, can I please cut in line because I'm running late? And so, giving it that reason, I think that a lot of professors do at least want to see themselves as logical. In a lot of ways, they've had to become logical for their jobs, or think in logic-driven ways. And so, yeah, if you can say, I need more time, but also being specific, right? There's advisors, especially right now, are struggling. So if you can say, I need to have at least one meeting with you, or can we set up a weekly meeting because I'm feeling a little bit lost, and after 2 weeks I'm definitely off track. That can be really helpful.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And even though it sort of puts more work on you a little bit, because you have to do more like of the thinking and preparation beforehand, I think doing that work for them and like presenting it in that way makes it a lot more likely that they'll like agree with what you're saying. I mean, and this also applies to not just like your current advisor, but like maybe whenever you're cold emailing people, or like if you're applying to grad school, reaching out professors that you might want to work with, like, hey, I want to work with you because, and like be very specific and like concrete in your examples to show that you've actually put thought and energy and like actually care, because they're receiving like emails like so many a day. Like, why should they listen and read to yours?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I want to really highlight when it comes to navigating like professional interactions, how valuable it is to say, like you were saying, Rob, if it's more meeting time you want, saying that I would like some more meeting time so that we can push this research project forward and both benefit. I think in professional settings, that's a really key skill to keep in mind, to think about how will this inquiry also benefit this other party here. I think is a very strategic thing, because then it also introduces this incentive for this other person to help you. And unfortunately, we're not living in a world where everyone is just purely selfless and helping each other for the sake of it. Not, at least not all the time. There are fantastic people out there who, of course, are out there to support other people. But sometimes you do have to go into the strategy of saying how, this is a maybe negotiation, or like a conversation where I have to sell why this is also beneficial for everyone and not just me. So I think that's been an important tip to do really in professional interactions, or really life interactions.
Yeah, definitely a skill. So we've got a bunch of questions in the chat, and hello to everyone in the chat, and thanks for everyone watching. Just our regular plug of, if you want to go ahead and like and subscribe. If we get to 100 subscribers, then we actually get to have our own little handle instead of some like horrible jumble of letters. But I want to get here. So John asks, how do you deal with the supervisor that suggests you don't, quote, have something like depression in an effort to help, though subsequently diminishing your experience? I think we've all had that situation where we've said, hey, I'm struggling with depression or anxiety or or a significant, sort of situation, and the other person is trying to be supportive, saying like, oh, don't worry yourself, like you're not actually depressed, or you're not actually dealing with this, it's just a phase, or it's just a thing, or my favorite is like, grad school is supposed to be hard.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that definitely shows like a lack of awareness on their part. And I guess it is whether or not you want to put in that energy, or think it's worth putting that energy into sort of guiding your supervisor through, like educating them like about depression, I guess is our example, like why it's real, like why it is impacting you, like why it's not something that doesn't exist. Yeah, I guess it really depends on like what your goals are, I believe.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it does depend on what your goals are. When I in my past, where I was met with these really similar invalidating statements of like, oh, it's not real, you're just not working hard enough, and that's really hurtful for sure. And I think it does matter with what your goals are, if it is to get this person to be aware of mental health, or sometimes it is, what I realize, it's a lot of energy to get certain people aware and knowing how to handle mental health, and just balancing where you want to spend that energy. So sometimes, for example, if you are around people who aren't understanding and they're kind of stubborn and still not giving you the support after you educate them, then I've also kind of reflected on what my goals are, and I'm like, okay, I want to take care of myself. It looks like these people aren't in a space where they can provide that support, and it's going to be this amount of energy to get them at that place. What are my goals? And I'm like, okay, if my goals are just to help my own wellness, other things I can do are reach out to other support systems that can provide what I need. And there was a period of time where I felt like, oh, maybe I'm just giving up if I stop like sharing resources with them about mental health, and I'm like just caving in or whatever. And I had a very negative attitude about it for a while. But then I do think at the end of the day, there are people who will not be supportive. Like, those people exist, and it is important to know how to navigate when you come across those people, and to kind of take a step back and search for other support systems isn't really giving up. It's you taking care of yourself. And at the end of the day, we can't control everyone's response to mental health. Like, what I envision my mission on social media and raising awareness isn't to transform the entire world to be aware of mental health. I mean, I would love to, but I think something more realistic is me spreading ideas about mental health, planting new ideas in people's heads, and just getting more of those ideas out there, I think, is a more realistic mission rather than getting every single person to be on board, which is definitely the ultimate goal. But sometimes it is frustrating that is very, very hard to do, and how to navigate knowing that is very hard to do.
Yeah, like, I guess to summarize all of that is like, know your goals, know whether or not the conversation is going to be productive, and I guess also, like, are you the right person to be the one expending that energy, or like, could someone else do it better?
Yeah, finding some allyship. We've got a great question from Justin B that says, what kind of questions can I ask grad students when I'm in the interview process to gauge if the PI is potentially toxic, so I can avoid emotional distress during my program? Yeah, so what questions maybe what questions do we wish that we had asked beforehand, or that were useful?
I guess I mean, when I went to my grad school visit, I had my notebook, I had a list of questions. I was like, I'm gonna ask all of these, but like, you're never gonna think about all of them, and then also it's sometimes hard to have them come up like naturally in conversation. But my priorities going in were like how are like LGBTQIA plus students treated here? How is life for LGBTQIA plus students like in Los Angeles? Which was like kind of like a weird question because like it's Los Angeles, but I asked that at like every school. I guess some questions or like flags you could look for is like, how many students have they graduated? How many students have quit working with them? Yeah, like how many people have dropped out? And then I guess maybe asking the current grad students who are working with that person, or even other graduate students in the program, who may have known people who were working with that person, do they feel supported in these like certain ways?
Yeah, I think one thing for me is I wish I had asked more open-ended questions and asked for examples. So rather than saying like, oh, is this a good PI, or does this, do you have enough time for somebody, or are they supportive of mental health? That's a very easy, if it's a very binary option of yes or no, especially with the pressures on grad students, it's hard to figure that out. So instead of saying, do they support grad students' mental health? It's, when was the last time that they brought up mental health? Or is there an example of when there was some sort of political issue going on that they brought up something, or how did they deal with that? Or, if there is a conflict, what was one time that there's been a conflict in the lab where they have been involved? Because I think it forces people to, one, give these examples and give you an idea of what's going on, but also it's a lot harder to kind of cover up things, because it's like grad students are under a lot of pressure. You don't want something to come back to you. It's a very political system. And so even if your situation is not super positive, you're not going to want to say that to a brand new applicant that you haven't interacted with before. But if you as an applicant say, what kind of options exist for LGBTQ students, right? Instead of how are things good here? If you ask what's available and nobody even knows what the options are, or people say like, oh, I know there's support, like I've never heard of like violence on campus. That tells you how much of a priority those things are, and if they're just discussed even.
Yeah, I wish I asked all these. I felt like I went in so blind. I didn't have a question. Rob, I love how you're like, I wrote down all these questions because I did feel like
I was nervous.
You're doing it right. Like I do think that is one thing that a lot of people relate to when they are looking for grad programs and interviewing. It's just, what are the right questions to ask? Or even like for me, I felt like, yeah, I wish I knew what kind of questions. Yeah, I didn't know what questions I wanted to ask going in. And then now I'm in it and I realize, yeah, I wanted to ask about what mental health was like, because maybe that would have informed me about which grad programs. I was like comparing them, which ones were better or worse than what I was looking for. Yeah, so I mean, I would say if you're watching now, write down every question that Susanna and Rob just put down, because I think those are very, very valuable things to ask. I mean, I remember I would ask like, I mean, more research-oriented questions like, oh, if maybe it's about more administrative things of the program, like what are the courses like, or what are like how many rotations or logistical things. And I didn't even think to ask about what the mental health, like how does the department view mental health? How supportive are the students? What about these specific PIs with the lab dynamic is like that wasn't even on my radar. And yeah, I mean, I think it's really important to focus your questions on also what life is like and how supportive the environment is like, because when I applied, and it's also because this is just the culture of academia, you don't really talk about these things. You focus on the science. And I thought it was weird if I did bring up something that was wellness. And nowadays, I just really, really spread those ideas all over the internet. But I do think that was one of the main lessons I learned, was that people don't talk about it, but people want to, and it's important to ask and initiate those conversations and not just ask about the science, and that's okay.
Definitely. Yeah, and one question that I enjoy when people ask me is, what questions should I be asking? Because there's often things that I want to say, and like, I mean, I wanted people to ask me everything about my department, like UNC, microbiology, immunology. I was like, let me tell you all of the great things, because it's a really supportive environment, and I strongly recommend it to people. And so I would, if someone has asked me that, then I'm like, oh, ask me about the student-focused functions, or ask me about how much they actually solicit and listen to grad student input. But it also goes the other way, that when there's been situations that I want to bring up or that I think are important, if that person asks me directly about them, I'm going to answer. Versus I don't want to be the person to say, that lab that you're looking at, I know things about it that are not a good environment. It's not directly abusive. It's not anything that's reportable, but I can tell you that there are no graduate students who have ever graduated. But unless you ask me those questions, I don't feel good about just saying them. All right. Fay, do you have more questions? Oh, go ahead.
I kind of want to pivot right before we run out of time, though. To, like, we've been talking a lot about being the person in the position that is like sharing or like initiating the conversations, but there's also like the whole other side of it, of like being the person who is receiving information, or like being the listener in the situation. And I think that's especially important right now, where there are so many conversations going on about like police violence and like anti-Blackness, and like so many people are like asking like, oh, like what can I do to help? Like how can I be a better ally? And the resounding answer, I feel like, to how can I be a better ally is always like listen to what people are telling you. And I feel like what we've been, or I guess like what I've been seeing, is that a lot of people, when they receive feedback and like critique on like on their allyship or like maybe some initiative that they started, but then someone in that community that the initiative is supposed to help, or maybe some intersecting community gives feedback on it and is like, oh, this is actually not accessible. This is actually like racist, or like this is homophobic, or just like decentering yourself from that and be like, not like taking it so personally, I feel like is like a big thing, because I've observed so many like group chats and like seen so many screenshots from group chats and like witnessed personally people like getting upset that they're feeling shame. And I feel like we really need to like reflect on like, oh, like where is this feeling of shame that I'm coming from? Like, why am I starting to get upset that this person is calling me out on doing something that is well intentioned but is not doing its job fully in the way that it should be or could be? Yeah, it's like just like listening and like taking feedback and critique and just like it's yeah, I don't know. I don't know where I was going. Well, I do know where I was going with that, but I forget how I was going to end it.
I mean, yeah, we're used to and expected to take feedback in a grad program, right? Like everyone knows if you're going to go into a grad program, you're going to learn, you're hopefully going to get feedback about your writing, about your research, about your presentation skills. And I mean, it can sting a little bit. I think, you know, I've tried to do things where I've said, you know, oh, this is I'm helping, like this is what I consider helping, and I've had other people say like that's not helping, or that's not the right way, or you should know these other things about it. And there is a part that, you know, my feelings get hurt, and like that's a normal thing. But then the way we react to it, that's our choice. And pretty much always when I've reacted to something and just said like, thank you for bringing that up, I really appreciate you stepping out of your comfort zone and telling me about that. It's almost always met with like, no problem, you know, and they appreciate it. So yeah, that's a really interesting way to talk about it, is decentering. Would you explain a little bit more what that might look like?
I guess it's kind of like taking yourself out of it. It's like people, like even if they're frustrated and it's like coming in the form of like a yell, like they're yelling at you and like they're angry. It's like, yeah, maybe they're angry for like a good reason. Like they've been oppressed in all these different ways for like hundreds of years. But like knowing that it isn't necessarily about you, it's about this thing that you did and it was like wrong, and that it's something you should fix instead of like doubling down on like and trying to defend and like deflect guilt. So no, like being aware that it's about this action and not about you. It's like I feel like I have this like I have some close friends that I've had to educate in certain ways or like explain things to, and sometimes it comes down to them having a statement like, oh well, like I feel like this, or like I feel like this doesn't happen because of this, or like I don't think that's right because it makes me feel like this. And I'm like, well, it's not about you, right? It's about these people in like their communities. And yeah, I mean, I guess one concrete example that for me personally is also like we changed the name of Queers in STEM to Queer and Trans in STEM like a month or two ago, because when we first founded it, I was under the impression that everyone used like queer as an umbrella term for everything under the rainbow of LGBTQIA plus. But then we had some trans people who are students in QSTEM bring it up to us that like, oh no, that's not necessarily true. Like a lot of trans people don't identify with queer, and that queer actually only corresponds to probably like sexual orientation and not necessarily gender identity. So we changed it. And even though it was like this initiative that I've like put so much work into, and like we sort of like branded in this way, and like we have stickers for and stuff. Um, I know it's not about me. It's about like this initiative is about helping our entire community, and it's like a simple thing to fix. So why not?
Hey, what do you think?
Yeah. Oh, I think if I were to some of this, I think great point that you brought up, Rob, where we're pivoting to if you're receiving the feedback, how to approach it in a productive way. I think just to sum up, sometimes when we're bringing up these discussions, I think especially important nowadays are all of these racial injustice discussions that are happening. I think what I've been seeing is more of the defensive response that you both have been describing, where it's like, oh, well, I've already been doing all of these things for diversity and inclusion, instead of, I think a better or more productive response is, I hear you, you know, acknowledging that like this conversation is something that is being heard, and also saying, you know, the current stuff that's happening, it's become evident that it's not enough, like these efforts, and that it's important to do better and work together, listen to each other, and brainstorm new ways. Like whenever I hear this response that, oh, I've already been doing everything, that kind of gives the impression that, okay, you are making this about you. You're getting defensive and taking it as being about you, where the overall picture should be, how can we have a conversation to improve the current state of things? So I think that's just a common theme that I've seen in a lot of conversations nowadays, where, you know, students bring up their frustrations about the lack of diversity inclusion, and then faculty say, well, we already have this. And it's just like, it's not about you. Like, it's evident that whatever currently is here is not enough, and we need to talk about that. So I mean, if there are, I think, faculty watching now, and we're all students talking, it's important to know that you have power and to show that you're listening. And especially, I think as students, we're talking about how we can navigate toxic environments, but at the end of the day, it's really frustrating that we have to be the people navigating toxic environments rather than faculty taking responsibility to support students and just not be toxic in the first place. So if you're a faculty watching now, I mean, please listen to your students, and please know that you have power, and you can really support students with that power, and, you know, hold your peers accountable if you do see poor behavior going on.
And same to grad students. I think that a lot of times because we have, I mean, everyone feels like they have less power than someone, right? You talk to assistant professors and they say they're not tenured, and you talk to tenured professors and they say, well, I'm on a study session with this. And same with grad students, is that we do have a lot of power, and the things that we perpetuate and the things that we allow to happen, if we see something and we're not part of a group, if we're, you know, whether it's mental health, racial issues, sexual, gender minorities, et cetera, if we see something and don't speak up, or at least don't try to support, we're also creating that toxic environment. And so taking on some of that responsibility and saying, hey, there's probably times where I haven't done what I really wish that people would do. I think that's really cool. And thank you, Rob, for bringing up that part of half of difficult discussions is not bringing them up, but rather allowing them to happen and learning from them. So yeah, we've got your information there at the bottom. Are you comfortable with people? I mean, this is like social media. Are you comfortable with people reaching out, asking questions, trying to learn from you?
Oh yeah, always. Sometimes if I see it's like a question, it might take me a while to respond, but yeah, I'll always eventually respond if I see it at least.
Yeah. It's always coming in. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Faye. Do you want to take us out? Oh, actually, I'm going to drop in the chat the link to our new form. Do you want to tell people what this is?
I'm guessing it's the form where people can nominate themselves or others to come on Grad Chat and talk about whatever topic that you want to pitch. And yeah, is that Is there other information on that form?
No, it's that. And I would say too, if you're going to nominate somebody, just check in with them first, or say, hey, I want you to, like, I think you'd be a great voice on here. We're trying to make sure we've invited a few folks, and so we're excited to have them come on. We're actually going to start asking them to do takeovers of PhD Balance. Rob, I still have to talk to you about this because we're like 6 steps behind where I'm supposed to be, but because there's always so many great questions, and it's really important, I think, that we have different perspectives, because no one grad student, no one academic can speak for everyone else. So yeah, if you or someone else wants to chat with us, it's a pretty easy form to fill out. But yeah, Rob, thank you so much for this. It's been really
Thanks
cool.
for having me. I haven't talked to either of you in a while, so it was nice catching up.
I'm so jealous that y'all are both on the best coast.
You'll have to visit again.
I know.
Post-COVID,
definitely. All right. Bye everybody.
Bye.